Good afternoon. I don't think I've used a real microphone in about 2 years, so this is weird, but good afternoon. My name is Moné Holder. I'm the Senior Director of Advocacy and Programs at Florida Rising. I know Florida Rising might be a name many of you have not heard before, and that's because about 1 year ago, on January 1, Florida's grassroots powerhouse organizations, New Florida Majority, which is the legacy organization I come from and I worked for about a decade, and Organized Florida, united as one to advance our ability to build power that centers Black and brown communities. So Florida Rising is essentially an independent political organization bringing together Black and brown communities to seize power and govern to advance social, economic, and racial justice across the state of Florida. Florida Rising presence now spans across 4 regions, 11 counties with 12 regional offices. We have a team of 85 staff members, which is huge, well, at least for us, 1,200 active dues-paying members, 2,896 volunteers, 10,416 activists, 284 leaders, over 100,000 supporters, and 35 members trained as facilitators across the state. So, thank you. But in 2021, when Florida Rising was birthed, we had several factors that came into play when we were developing our organizational strategy. First of all, we were a new staff family, and you know when you meet cousins that you never knew before, it's a thing. We had merged membership base. So with the legacy organizations, New Florida Majority was predominantly in North Florida and South Florida. Organized Florida was in Central and West Florida. So it was an awesome opportunity to be statewide, but our members didn't know each other. So we had the work of doing relationship building not only as a staff, but for our membership and doing it virtually. So y'all can imagine what that looked like. And we were still in the midst of a global pandemic. And Black and brown folks across the state were being hit in every direction, really across the nation. We had attacks on voting rights. We had the loss of life at the hands of law enforcement in some places. We had unsafe living conditions, and we had severe lack of affordable housing and disproportionate access to health care and to services. So in our minds as an organization, we had planned out 4 specific buckets of work that we would take up: climate justice, reproductive justice, criminal systems reform, and expanding democracy. Those were buckets of work that we thought were great. There's a lot of work to do in the community around those, and it still is. But we found that in conversations that our organizers were having, our grassroots organizers, either in one-on-one meetings with people that they met out in the field, in their regional meetings that they were hosting virtually, that there was still something or many things that folks had on their hearts and minds that we needed to address as an organization. Because we believe in member ownership. So we don't have a campaign, we don't have a program, we don't have any body of work if our members aren't bought into it and the community isn't bought into it. I can't run or win a campaign by myself, even though sometimes I think that I can. And what sets us apart from many of our partners, we work with advocacy groups, we work with lawyers, but we have base. So if our base isn't happy again, then what are we really doing? So we have this thing called People's Assemblies. We usually do them monthly by city or region, but every year we have a statewide People's Assembly, and we thought, what does this look like for our inaugural assembly as Florida Rising to not only roll out who we are, introduce folks to each other, get their opinion on the issue areas that I mentioned earlier, but really hear from folks, what can we do or how can we lead as an organization? So we said, well, we don't want to overthink it. We can just ask folks to vote on what it is we should be focusing on. Easy enough, right? Democracy, expanding democracy. So we made it a thing. We worked hard, prepping our members for what this process would be, and brought them all into a virtual room. And the thing that came up as the top voted issue was affordable housing or housing justice overall. Okay, cool, right? So what does that mean for us? It meant a lot. So as far as infrastructure changes, we didn't have funding for housing, right? That wasn't something we raised money for. We didn't have a dedicated housing staff as we have for other issue-based organizations. We have campaigners for each issue. Housing, we did not, and we still do not. The job description is posted on our website. But I think, as I heard in one of the breakout sessions earlier, the biggest failure is to hear what people want change and not act on it. So we had to act on it. We called this meeting. You all voted. We said we were going to do something, so we had to make it work. Our organizers on the ground kicked into action. They started organizing around housing. We know that, as people say, all politics or all things are local. So we worked to come up with local changes and platforms that we wanted to see around housing justice in the state. As we prepared for legislative session, we worked on things we wanted to advocate for at the state level, and what were things we really wanted to push for on a federal level or overall changes when it came to housing and security. And then there's that word resources. So we actively started to seek resources to help fund our work in housing, not only in the immediate year, but what we can do for long term, because housing wasn't going to go away in 1 year. We had to commit to this being a long-term change, a long-term priority for the organization. And then it's partnerships and allies, because even as an organization with members, we still can't do this work alone. And we've become leaders in the Florida Housing Justice Alliance space. I have 1 minute. So as we are still working, fast forward to 2022, we have come up with our campaign called Justice on Every Block. So we're building a base of tenants, Black folks, Latinx folks, returning citizens across the state to demand justice on every block. And for us, that starts with safe, affordable homes, rent control, and development that doesn't displace us. So as you learn the name Florida Rising, you will also see justice on every block, because that is something that we are looking for, not just in affordable housing, but in every part of the state as it relates to Black and brown folks in Florida. Thank you so much.